This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, it's been a while since we have been frustrated as Brewers fans, but that certainly is the case this evening following the back-to-back losses in Chicago in Wrigley Field to the Cubs. The second one, a 4-1 loss. Brandon Woodruff just struggling in this one. We'll talk about his start, his short start on the program. Jamison Taillon for the Cubs turned a rough start into a very quality outing for him. So we'll talk about what went wrong with the Brewers offense this afternoon, this evening at Wrigley Field, and the Cubs gaining a game on the Brewers as they beat them not once, but twice. We'll talk about that and what the Brewers now have to do going into Wednesday and Thursday. Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Locked On Brewers POSTCAST. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, at Brandon_Snide, and follow all of my work over at WTMJ.com, where we cover all of our Wisconsin sports teams. And wherever you get podcasts, you can listen to this podcast. We are free and available. My thanks to each and every one of you for always making Locked On Brewers part of your day. Free and available, Amazon, Google, Apple, all those great podcast apps, as well as everything over on YouTube, free and available as well. Just go to that search bar, type in Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button for me, and do me another solid. Hit that thumbs up and make sure you hit that notification bell. Get notified when we go live talking about our brew crew, our struggling brew crew today. Not one, but two losses to the Cubs in Wrigley Field. The good news for the Brewers, despite both of these losses today, and in my opinion, and we'll get to your opinions as well, very much both winnable games today for Milwaukee. They just failed to get those timely hits. So we'll discuss all of that. And of course, your thoughts, your reactions, your opinions, your questions are all welcomed on the program. We'll get to all of it as the show rolls on. I do want to get into the scoring summary this evening and quickly get into the turning point in a 4-1 Brewers loss. Not a lot of scoring in this one. And for me, the turning point in this game is the very, very first inning for the Brewers in a 4-1 loss.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
And did it feel like the Brewers had a golden opportunity in that first inning? Again, Jamison Taillon, who hasn't pitched in a game, in a major league game, had a couple of rehab starts, hasn't pitched for the Cubs since the end of June, since that calf injury. He was making his way back, and the Brewers did exactly what they should have done in that first inning. They fought off pitches. They battled in at-bats. They got Taillon up to 30 pitches in that first inning and just scored the one run. And that would be obviously the only run that this team would score throughout the course of the rest of the 8 innings. But it felt like a very, very missed opportunity early on for this Brewers team. They leave two guys in scoring position. And once again, not a good day at the plate for the Brewers with runners in scoring position, 2 for 6 on the evening, leaving 6 players on base. But that first inning felt like it could have been a tone setter for this game. You only got one run. And I remember watching that and thinking and kind of shaking my head a little bit. I feel like they missed one right there. I feel like they missed an opportunity again against a Cubs team. And we'll get into this later because I'm taking a lot of heat on social media, who I'm afraid are starting to wake up. And hopefully it's not going to be tomorrow and into Thursday, but they responded right away in this game. So we mentioned the Brewers getting one run, and Andrew Vaughn single to center would score William Contreras in the first. That would give the Brewers a 1-0 advantage, but that would be it. That'd be it for the Brewers. Again, had Taillon pitch count sky high into that first inning. He would sit down the Brewers offense for the next 5 innings until the bullpen for Chicago would take over. Owen Casey, who unfortunately for us Brewers fans is going to be a problem in the National League Central. He continued his hot hitting in the day, 4 RBIs from game 1 into game 2, and in game 2, a single for Casey in that second inning. Frustrating thing about that at bat is I feel like he should have struck out prior to that bloop single, and that was the frustrating part where after that first inning, I guess you can include the first inning, it became frustrating for the next 25 outs for the Brewers in this one because it was just a struggle every inning from Brandon Woodruff. Second inning again, a Bush double to right field that would score Owen Casey. The Cubs would take a 2-1 advantage. A good response from Chicago. Again, right away where the Brewers, you felt like they had Taillon on the ropes. They certainly did as far as pitch count goes, only able to plate that one run. But it felt like a golden opportunity was missed, and the Cubs responded right away again in that bottom half of the second inning. They would take the 2-1 advantage. Later in the fifth, a Nico Horner single to center that would score Ian Happ. The Cubs go up 3-1, and then Michael Busch once again a fielder's choice in the sixth inning. Shaw would score. He would Bryce Terrain would try to go home with the ball just a little high, kind of shooting from the hip there for Bryce Terrain. The throw would be high. Danny Jansen, who was behind the plate catching tonight, William Contreras DHing, would not be able to apply the tag. In just a very, very frustrating way for this team to lose 4-1 to the Cubs in Wrigley Field, 79-47 now on the season. They dropped 2 games today. Thankfully have pulled, the one game, the win 7-0 behind Freddie Peralta at the day game on Monday. So they were up 9 going into tonight's doubleheader, but dropping both was very, very tough because I thought that the opportunities in game 1 were there for this offense, for the Brewers. They lost that game 6-4. And then tonight, the opportunities were plenty for this team, especially against a guy who was coming back from a long rehab. And Taillon, as we have mentioned, he does get the win. And for Jamison Taillon to go, this is where it's frustrating for me. For him to go 6 innings after that first inning where he was at 30 pitches, for him to finish the ball game going 6 innings and throwing 92 pitches. So 5 innings that he went after that first inning and only tossed, I'm going to go do some quick math, about 60 pitches, 62 to be exact. That's just not the Brewers that we've grown accustomed to. A lot of ground ball outs, a lot of early outs at bats. I mean, he responded in that second inning with a very quick turnaround pitch count. That is Taillon. That is, and you got to tip your cap, where you can give credit where credit is due. But it felt like a game where the Brewers should have won. It felt like a game where the opportunity early on for this team was there. And Brandon Woodruff, I love Brandon Woodruff. You're going to be hard pressed to find another guy who loves Brandon Woodruff as much as I do. Not only do we share the same first name, but I just think he's the definition of what it is to be a Milwaukee Brewer. Just 4 1/3 innings pitched tonight. Just a very struggling type game for Brandon Woodruff command-wise. 94 pitches thrown, only 62 of them landing for strikes today for Woodruff. He would give up 5 hits. He would give up 3 earned runs, one of those earned runs coming after he left the game. And Aaron Ashby, look, I understand that the Brewers didn't win the game. I understand that the Cubs won, not one, but both games. But a hat tip, a round of applause for Aaron Ashby tonight in the Brewers' 4-1 loss, eating the last 3 2/3 innings of this game. And the Brewers not having to go through anybody else in that bullpen, I think is hopefully going to set them up for success going into Wednesday and Thursday. So the Brewers do lose 4-1. They lose game 1 earlier in the day, 6-4, 7-game lead in the National League Central. I took some heat for the comments I made on social media. I'm currently still taking heat, I should say, at my Twitter account at Brandon_Snide, because I mentioned a disastrous start to this series in Chicago. I'll explain that coming up after this. Today's Locked On Brewers postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. And preseason is already heating up, getting ready to finish up week 3 of the preseason, and college football isn't too far behind. Whether you got your eye on the big name quarterback or the breakout running back, Prize Pick is the easy way for you to get in the game. Simple to play, just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Download Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, code LOCKEDONMLB, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Once again, that code is Locked On MLB at Prize Picks. Download the app today. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's Locked On Brewers postcast also brought to you by our wonderful partners over at FanDuel. August 26th, officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for those bold predictions and those preseason hunches. And for just 24 hours on August 26th, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP shot, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off right now, August 26th is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets right now. Once again, August 26th, FanDuel Futures Days, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. Once again, that day is August 26th. FanDuel, fuel your game. A tough day for the Brewers at the office there in Wrigley Field, losing both games to the Cubs 6-4, and then the nightcap, a 4-1 loss. Brandon Woodruff taking the loss this evening, his first of the year, 4 1/3 innings pitched, allowing 3 earned runs. The Brewers having 7 hits, but just untimely hits tonight was the key for the Cubs walking out of Wrigley with their second consecutive win. The Brewers only able to plate that 1 run in the first inning. We talked about it. Had Taillon on the ropes, but unfortunately weren't able to get anything else going throughout the course of the rest of the game. The Cubs using a few guys in their bullpen. So a frustrating finish to a frustrating day for our Brew Crew. Again, still comfortable in the National League Central. And I'm going to get to my tweet here in a minute. Let me pull it up actually while we're talking about it. You still got a 7-game lead in the National League Central, so it's not the end of the world. And again, I know I'm getting a lot of flack here on social media, but at Brandon_Snide, I wrote, series is quickly becoming disastrous in Chicago. And I'm getting a lot of reaction from fans that are saying it's a little early, calm down. Here's my fear. And again, this could be all erased tomorrow night and Thursday afternoon. You started the series off perfect, right? And things were breaking perfectly for this series. You had Freddie Peralta dealing in game 1. Cade Horton goes out in game 1, the starter for the Cubs. The Cubs had to dip into that bullpen. Then it was rain delayed. And I had a bad feeling about not only, we kind of all knew if you looked at the forecast that the game was going to be rained out, but because the Cubs had to go into that bullpen early in game 1, they weren't able to play game 2 on Monday, which stretched them out until tonight, obviously. I thought that was unfortunate luck. That was just bad luck for the Brewers. That's Mother Nature. Nothing you can do about it. I think the Brewers win game 2 if game 2 was played on Monday, just because of the bullpen that the Cubs had to go into early in that game where Horton had to leave. Then today, Owen Casey gets going for the Chicago Cubs and 4 RBIs batted in, a key hit and early in the game against Chad Patrick in game 1. We mentioned his RBI here in game 2 that got the Cubs on the board in this one and obviously would prevail in a 4-1 win. This team, the Cubs, were on life support. I know they won 2 games out of 3 against Pittsburgh. It took literally everything for them to crawl out of that division, winning 2 games out of that, out of that series, winning those 2 games. I don't want any life being, put on this Cubs team during this series. And I said this before the series began. This is an opportunity, it still is an opportunity for this team to put away the race for the National League Central. And the last thing I wanted after this series was to allow the Cubs any kind of life after this series is over. Now, you still can go, if you're the Brewers, and win one of the next 2 games, because in my opinion, you have to win one of the next 2 games. I think anybody that's listening to the show, anybody that's a fan of Milwaukee would agree. You don't want to lose 4 straight, including, going out of Chicago, bowing out of Chicago with a 4-game losing streak. You don't want that to happen. But I'm afraid that there's a little bit of spark now with this Cubs team, and I'm afraid because of the unlucky break that we've had, Mother Nature wise, on Monday, that it's starting to kind of break. A lot of breaks today for the Cubs in this game. A lot of hard hit balls right at Cubs defenders. The Matt Shaw triple late in the game that avoided the ivy somehow and bounced on the brick and bounced all the way almost back into the infield, and he got to third base. Just a lot of bad breaks going now for this Brewers team. I hope going forward this doesn't breathe any life into that Cubs organization, who, by the way, on Monday were booing their players. We're booing their manager. Everything was kind of falling apart, and now, okay, 2 in a row against this Brewers. If you can get one of the next 2, you're not awful. 6-game, lead in the division or trailing in the division. Again, still a lot of baseball to play. The Cubs have one of the easiest remaining schedules in September. The Brewers have a top 5 strength of schedule remaining in the month of September. So it's not over yet. But again, it hasn't broken the way for this Brewers team that we've seen over the month of August, most of July. And unfortunately tonight that is key because just no breaks tonight for this Brewers team in a 4-1 loss. So hopefully they can get things right. Jacob Mizorowski on the mound for the Brewers tomorrow. We'll see if they can get things turned around and we get going in the win column. Let's get to your thoughts, your reactions. Every day or G kept lots of missed opportunities in the first game of this doubleheader. Hopefully they bounce back. And again, they were unable to bounce back in that game, as we have mentioned, a 4-1 loss. Jacob over on YouTube, part of our everydayers. Are we still grounding out? It feels like the whole story of our offense this evening. Yeah, it was brutal. Again, a lot of bad breaks. Again, not timely hitting. They kind of mentioned it on the television broadcast. The Brewers racking up 7 hits. The Cubs only had 9. Cubs played 4 runs. The difference is timely hits, right? Guys in run and hitting with guys in scoring position, and the Brewers unable to do it. Adam over on YouTube, Cubs benefited significantly from that rain out yesterday. It could have easily been a doubleheader sweep in the Brewers' favor. And that, actually Adam beat me to the point but I didn't see your comment there, Adam. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I write that tweet on Twitter saying that a little disastrous start to the series, because the Brewers, I think, win game 1 and 2 on Monday if it's played, right? Like the Cubs had nobody in their bullpen, or they wouldn't have had anybody in their bullpen. And then that would lead them to nobody here as well this evening with Taillon, who we thought was going to be on a shorter start. He actually does go 6 innings, 92 pitches thrown. The Brewers just failing to take advantage of those opportunities. So it was a bad break. But again, you don't want that to continue. You have to right your wrongs beginning on Wednesday and or Thursday. You do not want to leave Chicago losing 4 straight games and allowing the Cubs to gain 3 games in the race for the National League Central. Worst case, you leave, and you still have a 5-game lead in the National League Central. But again, a golden opportunity for this team, for this Brewers team, to bury the Cubs team. Again, a team that was booing their players, calling for their manager to leave and their general manager to be fired. I mean, it was disastrous in Chicago. And now life is kind of, back in, that clubhouse in that building. So we don't want that to get going for the Cubs. Siegfried over on YouTube. Perhaps the Pirates and Torontos of the world can beat the Cubs for us. We'll see. Again, a much easier schedule for Chicago down the stretch of September. A tougher one for the Brewers to wrap up the season with the last month or so. Snoopy over on YouTube. While the Brewers seem to always win games Priester starts, they always lose games in which Chad Patrick starts. Not an awful start from Chad, right? A mistake in that early in that game, in that first inning, just Andrew Vaughn and Chad Patrick not able to link up on that play from first, and where he was covering Chad Patrick that was covering first. And that next batter, of course, is Owen Casey, and he belts in a single to bring in 2 runs, and that kind of changed the trajectory of that game. Unfortunately, they lost 6-4 in that one, at which, again, the difference was that error in that game right there. It played to 2 runs. The Brewers lose by 2. And tonight, not necessarily anything that really was the difference. It just felt like the Brewers had opportunities, especially early on, as we have talked about at lengths, and they just failed to connect with any of them. Greg over on YouTube, just win one of the next 2 and we are fine. I agree. But you got to do it, right? You got to go out and you got to do it. Tomorrow is another great chance. I thought game 2, honestly, with how the Brewers lost game 1 today, which, again, I thought, the Cubs didn't really necessarily beat us. Technically, yes, they did, but I felt like the Brewers left a lot to be desired there in that game. But I felt really good about Brandon Woodruff going into tonight's game against Chicago. And Taillon, obviously, with we thought was going to be a shorter start because of that first inning and because of that, coming back from injury. And the Cubs bullpen, I don't really have any faith in, and I'm not sure anybody does that likes to watch Chicago baseball. But unfortunately, unable to capitalize for the Brewers offensively. Michael over on Twitter, YouTube, most of the meat of the lineup mostly missing today. Yeah, especially in, they had Andrew Vaughn had a big hit in that first inning. Christian Yelich had a home run in the first game. It wasn't great, but again, it becomes just timely hitting. You got to have that big hit in those moments. And that's what we've seen when they won 14 games in a row and when they won 11 games in a row in July, was getting those guys in key moments, in key opportunities, and taking advantage of it. And we just haven't seen that as of lately in the last 2 games against the Cubs. RD over on YouTube, what a gut punch, talking about the 4-1 loss to the Cubs. Glory Days Sports Consulting over on YouTube. First game loss was not caused by an error. It was smart. He actually threw it past Patrick to keep the runner at third. But if he catches the ball, the inning is over. The next at-bat was Casey, who belted in 2 runs, and the Brewers would lose in back-to-back fashion. Charles over on YouTube, turning point for me was Taillon thrown out at home. He scores there, and the momentum might have pushed them over the top. Need hits in those situations. I do agree. I wouldn't agree. I agree that it may have changed the momentum, but I don't agree that it was the turning point. If Taillon scores, there's still 2 outs and they're still down 2 runs. After Taillon was thrown out, we'll see what, obviously we don't know what happened, but the way that they had been playing offense all night, it didn't feel like anything, was really going to get them going to push them back in front or at least tie the ball game. I do agree that it did suck the momentum out of anything that the Brewers had going, but certainly an unfortunate, and again, tip your cap to Willie Castro. Heck of a throw there from right field. Everydayer Jason over on YouTube. Bats far from alive today, but did expect the Cubs to get he calls them the Scrubs, to get a few wins this series. That being said, definitely need to win tomorrow. My fear is if you don't win tomorrow and then Thursday becomes really big, like really, really big, and the Cubs can kind of, I don't want to say take their foot off the gas, but mentally can kind of breathe a little bit. You got to win tomorrow. And it's a big start. It's Jacob Misiorowski, Colin Ray, old former Brewer. So it's a big game tomorrow. I think any game against any of these guys are big. Any game period from here on out is big. But you don't want to have to lose 3 straight and then go into Thursday's day game, getaway game, and have to be in that we have to win this type of game, right? Winning game 1 with Freddie behind him on the mound was huge, because winning game 1 in a big series, in a long series like this, a 5-game series, which is very rare, it kind of sets the tone, but the Brewers allowed that to slip through the cracks, losing back-to-back games today. Nick over on YouTube again, as I said earlier, I'm going to take this as a good thing. It's a reality check for the crew. They are not invincible and have to play perfectly. Wash this day off and come back tomorrow and stomp on them. And that's the thing, right? And I have no doubts that manager Pat Murphy is sending kind of that same message. Is what it is. Ball didn't bounce our way. Had some bad luck, unfortunate hits that squeaked through. Talking about Owen Casey's bloop single and the Brewers, hitting into some loud outs and Brandon Woodruff not being on top of his command early in this one. And those things are going to happen, but you have to be able to bounce back beginning tomorrow, because you do not want to lose 3 in a row and have to look at Thursday as being like, boy, if we don't win this game, this has turned into an absolute disastrous series in Chicago. Mike over on YouTube, Brewers was like 49-16, nothing but complaining. Nobody's complaining, but like, we can't be celebrating either at that moment, right? Like, yeah, things have been going great. You had a 14-game win streak. You had an 11-game win streak in July, but you're not crowned division champions in August or July. You have to continue playing good baseball. You have to set yourself up for success going forward. That includes maintaining where you are in not only the National League Central, but in the National League in general. You want that overall number 1 seed. You don't want to have to play in that wild card series. Look what happened last year to the Brewers, who were the better team than the Mets, but the Mets were hot, and those things happen and knocked out the Brewers prematurely than we all expected. So you don't want to just celebrate that they're 49-16 over their last X amount of games and think it is a great thing. You're absolutely right, and I appreciate the comment, but I want to keep going. I want my foot on the Cubs' throat. I want to continue to put them down in the hole that they were in. I don't want them to be able to get back into the fight a little bit, so to speak. And I understand that a 7-game lead is still great. I want it to be a 10-game lead. I want it to be a 9-game lead. I want to be able to put these guys away, because the Brewers are the better team, and you don't want to see the Cubs squeak back into this thing because you let a few games go at Wrigley Field in the middle of towards the end of August. There's still over a month left of baseball. So going forward, let's try to right those wrongs beginning tomorrow with Jacob Mizorowski on the mound against Colin Ray. My thanks to each and every one of you for always listening. Thank you for always making Locked On Brewers part of your day each and every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you guys get audio podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, and of course, over on YouTube. Just go to that search bar, type in Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for me, hit that thumbs up, and we will talk about our Brewers throughout the course of the rest of the regular season and into the postseason. Just a quick show note, no postcast tomorrow. Instead of covering the Brewers, I'm going to be covering my 9-year-old son who will be playing at Hellfair Field at American Family Field to wrap up his Little League baseball season. So I will be there. I will be at American Family Field when the Brewers are not playing. It's going to be a little strange, but that's where I'm going to be at. But I will talk to you guys again on Friday when the Brewers welcome in Willy Adames and the San Francisco Giants. Again, my thanks to each and every one of you. Thank you guys for always tuning in. Thank you for always making Locked On Brewers part of your day each and every day. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on Twitter at X, formerly Twitter, at Brandon_Snide. Follow all of my work over at WTMJ.com. And win, lose, or draw, despite a tough day for the Brewers dropping 2 against the Cubs in Wrigley, it is always, always, always go Brewers. Have a good one, everyone.